Hey Lawn Care Nation, so welcome to my how to use an aerator and how to aerate lawns tutorial. Let's take a look at this aerator that I have here. This is a Bluebird 424. I believe it's one of the smallest ones available that you can get on the market, and it works perfect for the really small type lawns that I do. So we'll look at the back here. So it features 4 sets of tines that go around, and on the aerator here you've got a height adjustment, and you can see if you turn it counterclockwise it's going to go deeper. If you turn it clockwise, then it's going to go shallower. Honestly, I've never ever used the height adjustment. I set it on the highest or deepest cores that I can get, and I haven't touched it since. So I always leave that on, the deeper the cores, the better. On the front of an aerator, and on some other aerators, you're going to see some sort of a weight system. So on this one here, it uses these solid metal weights that slide into a channel here. Some other aerators will have a water tank system, or the front wheel will fill with water to add weight. With this Bluebird, it uses these 2 metal weights on the front here, and that really helps if you've got soil that's really compacted, that hasn't been aerated ever. You'll notice that the machine, if you go and try to aerate it, it'll bounce along the soil. If it's doing that, especially in drier conditions, then you want to add the weight to it to be able to weigh the machine down to get it to core a lot better. Typically here where I am in the Pacific Northwest, because of all the rain that we get, I don't really ever use the weights on there. It makes the machine a lot harder to use, of course, with all that extra weight. And here, because the ground is already really soft because of all the rain we get, it cores fine without it. But for the sake of this video, I'm putting the weights in it to show you guys how that works. And of course, you've got a typical 4-stroke engine on the machine. And then you've got a couple of controls on the back here. This large bar on the bottom is to raise and lower the tines into the ground. They basically release the wheels. It's resting on the rear wheels right now, and if you pull on the handle, then basically it raises the wheels to drop the machine down. And then this other smaller handle here under the grips is basically the self-propel. It's a chain drive that goes to the front wheel, and basically has the front wheel and the tines start to do their thing. So when you're going to aerate a typical lawn like this, what you want to do is very similar to mowing. You want to go around the perimeter, maybe 1 or 2 passes, so that you've got a good border all the way around the lawn. And then you're going to do very similar stripes to what you do with your mowing, just going straight up and down, up and down, up and down. And at the end of each turn, you're going to have to raise those rear wheels to be able to pivot and turn the machine. It basically pulls the tines out of the ground so that you can spin the machine. Then you lower the tines back into the ground, do your next stripe, and so on. So I'm going to set the camera down, and I'll show you briefly what it looks like to aerate a lawn. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video on normal speed so you can get a sense for how long it actually takes to do a typical aeration. So as you can see there, when you have to make tight turns where you can't just move or flow into that turn on, say, a radius, and it's like a corner that you have to turn, it is a lot more time consuming, as you have to raise those tines and then be able to pivot the machine, and then turn it, and then lower the tines, and then continue on. So take that into consideration. It's not as maneuverable as a typical, say, 21 or 30 inch standard lawnmower. So some of the things that you want to watch out for, particularly when you're aerating lawns, is of course sprinkler heads. You want to make sure if it's a property that you're not used to, that you have the customer flag all of their own sprinkler heads ahead of time, and that you have some sort of policy in place in terms of what happens if one of those sprinkler heads gets damaged, in terms of like who will be responsible for that. Here you can see I'm kind of walking on an angle. The lawn slopes in that direction. This is something else you want to watch out for as the machine, because of the weight of the machine, with or without those extra weights, will tend to want to go downhill. And you can see just with the angle that my body's on here, I'm fighting to keep the machine straight as it wants to go down that slight slope. So you get quite the workout if you've got any sort of lawns that have any sorts of hills or slopes on them, and it can get away from you pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you're not going over the limit of what the machine can handle as far as slopes, as well as what your body can handle. And as I said, this is the 424 model, so it's the smallest aerator model. So anything bigger than this is only going to be that much more difficult to handle on a slope or a hill. As the lawn flattens out here, it becomes a lot easier. You can see my body position now is directly behind the machine, not on the side trying to counterbalance it and push it up to keep it straight. Now it's just basically walking behind the machine, very straightforward on a flat lawn, to just go behind the machine and just guide it through that stripe. Also, turns like that at the end of stripes is fairly easy as well. You're basically just engaging those rear wheels again, so that you can get those tines out of the ground to be able to pivot and turn the machine, and then drop the tines back into the ground and go straight again. Once you get the rhythm and hang of using these types of machines, you can knock out lawns fairly quickly and get a whole day slated full of aerations done in a timely fashion. People always ask me if I clean up the cores at the end of aerations. I don't. I always leave the cores as is once the aeration is done. I was taught that leaving those cores on top, I know from experience that they break up very quickly within a week or two. They start to fall apart, and it acts like a top dressing on top of the lawn, but it also brings up very beneficial microorganisms to the soil surface that normally live deep down in the root zone, and introducing them to the soil surface helps break down any layers of thatch and stuff that you might have. So there you have it. That's how you use an aerator and you aerate a lawn. You can see the plugs we're getting there. Some of them are already breaking up with the drier dirt. Some of them where there's some more moisture, you're going to get longer plugs. All throughout the lawn. You can see the plugs here at the top of the lawn. There's a bit of a slope there. The top of the lawn, it's a lot drier. The plugs are smaller because they're breaking up as they come out of the machine. They're a lot drier, like I said. We're down the slope where the water tends to run off. You can see the color difference in the plugs as they get here. They're more and more moist, and they're holding together better just because of the moisture content in the soil.